First, there's a question of why are all these resources... Well, first you have to describe what is the situation. And the situation, briefly put, is the United States and its allies are expending an enormous amount of resources in trying to stop WikiLeaks and trying to create a very public example of doing so. Now, they have done that with an alleged source, Chelsea Manning, who was sentenced to 35 years in prison, tortured in prison. That's a formal finding by the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Torture, Juan Mendez, and a formal finding even by the US military courts that he was treated in an unlawful manner. His punishments were unlawful pre-trial punishments. So there's a desire to show that you cannot do what WikiLeaks does. Why is there a desire to show that? Well, because a desire to prevent people from following our example. And you can look at US treatment of Cuba, for example, for many, many years. If you read the internal documents in the White House and the National Security Council, it wasn't so much about Cuba. They didn't care so much, really, about Cuba. What they cared about was the example of Cuba to the rest of Latin America. The rest of Latin America, having seen someone, if you like, get away with that independence struggle, would themselves follow suit, and that would create a big problem. And so the same attitude is there with WikiLeaks, that they don't want this example of successfully making life complicated for the US intelligence and military establishment and diplomatic establishment. Now, so that's, if you like, a desire to create a general deterrent, so others are deterred from following our example. There's also a desire to create a specific deterrent, that is, to prevent us from continuing on in our publications. The general deterrent aspect relates to other publishers, other journalists, but also relates to insiders within the US intelligence, military, government system. The specific deterrent is just about us, specifically us, stopping us. So that has, the desire to do that has unleashed very considerable resources from the US government and also from its allies, who feel that they need to show allegiance to the problems that the United States government perceives that it has. Now, those very considerable resources include that over a dozen different US government departments and agencies publicly have been involved in the prosecution, investigation of WikiLeaks. So that includes publicly declared Pentagon war room with 120 people in it, operating 24/7, FBI, Defense Intelligence Agency, and others trying to work out what we were going to publish, building up evidence against it, etc. That's just the Pentagon. Then CIA publicly declared WikiLeaks task force, Department of Justice task force operating the National Security Division, the Criminal Division, State Department, etc. It is the largest ever investigation into a publisher, as far as people who are knowledgeable about these things say. And that's not surprising. In their own communications with the Australian government, the US government has said it is a whole of government investigation and of unprecedented scale and nature.